Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, it's Clayton, and I just got back from seeing Interviews with Monster Girls. This has been a very strange anime season, as we've had several shows with similar premises. We've had shows about demi-humans, about dragons turning into humans, and about angels and demons going to high school. I have no idea why all these shows are coming out at the exact same time, but let me just say with this series, it may not be heavy on the action, and it may be a bit too calm for some people, but it's a heartwarming series that I definitely enjoyed from beginning to end, that has very interesting ideas, well-written dialogue, and several characters that you can't help but love. But let's get to the story, shall we? The story centers around a biology teacher named Tetsuo Takahashi, who lives in a world very similar to ours, where mythical creatures exist. There are vampires, Dullahans, snow women, and succubi. And unfortunately, Tetsuo has only talked about them in passing, and he's never met one, even though he really, really wants to meet a demi-human one day. But thankfully, 3 demi-humans actually end up as his students at the high school he works at, and a succubus teacher comes onto the payroll. So yeah, pretty convenient. Seeing the opportunity of a lifetime, Mr. Takahashi decides to, one by one, interview the girls to see how they adapt to modern society, and he in turn learns a lot about each demi-human's nature, and he helps them out in their own ways, while they also help him out any way they can. So when it comes to the story, it's actually a very interesting story, where it deals with the demi-humans in a way that's similar to how we in modern society can feel as outcasts. It goes in the route of creating characters that don't fit in because of their differences. And this can be an allegory for several things. A person's sexual identity, race, or disability. Personally, I found the allegory to be more about disabled people, but you can think of the allegory any way you want. Either way, it's a good allegory that helps the story move along. And it helps the story, while being predictable at times, it still helps it being very heartwarming, and it gets you to learn more about these characters and feel for them each episode. Speaking of which, let's talk about the characters. Takahashi is very much a very likable lead. He's very caring towards all the demi-humans. He always seems to think about the best way to improve their situations. And unlike a lot of teachers in anime, he actually acts like an adult. He's not just an overgrown child. I really do like that. But clearly he's not the guy you want to see the series for. You're here to see the demi-human girls. So let's talk about them. First, there's Hikari, the blonde vampire. Mostly hyperactive characters in anime tend to annoy me, but Hikari never got annoying. She's always happy, she's always upbeat, and she's usually got a huge amount of energy behind her, and she's hilarious. Mainly due to her voice actress's performance and the fact that she always has something funny to say. Then there's the Dullahan, Kyoko Machi. She's a very kind girl, and she's very useful when coming up with the disability allegory, since she has the most obvious difference from most of her peers due to the fact that her head is separate from her body. Despite this, she's very kind and caring, and she usually has a funny thing or two to say about her head. Kusakabe, or Yuki, the snow woman, is probably the character with the most overall development, as, in my opinion, she's the only character where there's a big difference between Kusakabe at the beginning of the series and Kusakabe at the end of the series. As she starts out very shy and aloof, but becomes gradually less so over the series length, though I will not tell you why she ends up like that. Then there's Saki Sato, the succubus teacher. She's a very good subversion of the hot teacher archetype, because even though she's incredibly attractive, because she's a succubus, she tries to avoid evoking any sexual thoughts in her male peers. And in my opinion, it makes her a very relatable character, especially for several women who don't like being catcalled and who don't like to be sexualized, and who seek actual romances with real emotions behind them. Like I said, all the characters are very, very lovable, and they help out the series very well. The episode's pacings they're usually rather calm and slow, But I think that makes the series stand out a bit more. The fact that it takes its time with each character as it lets a moment sink in, or lets a character go through a monologue that goes over an interesting interpretation on these mythical creatures. As the show actually uses science, like biology and physics, to explain these things in an entertaining way. Usually it would come across as overwrought exposition, but here it actually comes across as interesting storytelling. Now, when it comes to watching the show either subbed or dubbed, I'd say both are very good, but the original Japanese cast does an incredible job, especially Junichi Suwabe as Takahashi, who has a very fitting voice, and also Yoko Hikasa, who's downright adorable as Saki Sato. Oh yeah, and not to mention, Kaidi Hondo's Hikari is so over the top that you can't help but laugh. The dub cast isn't bad, they certainly do happen to entertain me from time to time, but the Japanese cast just blows them out of the water in most cases. Other than one character in episode 7 who's German, which is why in the Japanese version they don't even bother to give him a German accent. Other than that character, I think everyone else in the Japanese cast does their roles better in the sub format. So I'd recommend watching the original Japanese audio with English subtitles. Last thing I'll mention is the ending and the opening themes. The opening theme is very cheery and upbeat, and I really love the opening animation where you get to see a glimpse of the characters' personalities just via a quick little vignette. It gets you really psyched to see what's going to happen in the next episode. And the ending theme is actually very charming while not being overblown. It feels like the right relaxing way to end an enjoyable episode right after a funny moment or a really interesting bit of character drama. So yeah, Interviews with Monster Girls is a very heartwarming series. In my opinion, the ending is not what I expected it to be, but it still works to a very good level. And honestly, if you have a lack of shows to watch this anime season, I definitely say you should choose this one, because if any series should get a season 2, this one's definitely it. I give Interviews with Monster Girls a 9 out of 10. See you next time.